Hey folks, Evil DM here. I'm back with another episode of Idols and Efreetis. This week we're going to talk a little bit about races. So we're going to start our series of looking over some of the races, and I'm going to do them probably not in order, but I'm going to do them one by one and get through all of them as we go through the book. This week we're going to start with Dwarves, the awesome little bearded creatures that everyone loves to play, whether they play as a dope, a drunk, and just do the weird accent and have a lot of fun playing it. People love Dwarves. Dwarves are a great class to play in 1E, but there are some things you need to worry about when playing them. Now, I'm not going to go over every little detail because you can read them in the book yourself, and I will just point out interesting things about them along the way. And I will tell you where to look, and maybe identify a few things that are a little confusing to new people, or maybe old people as well. So if we turn to page 13, they tell you the limitations of a dwarf and what class they can actually be. Obviously, they can't be all the classes. They can only be a fighter, thief, and assassin. If you look at Unearthed Arcana, the Orange Spine book, which is, most people consider that 1.5 edition of Dungeons & Dragons, you can see that it allows you to play a cleric going forward. But with these notes, it tells you that you can't. So if you're playing strictly by the rules of the core rules, you can't play a dwarf. Cleric, that is. Now, here is another chart here on page 14. It tells you the limit of levels that you can go upwards in a dwarf, and it does list a dwarven cleric, but it has parentheses around it, which means it's basically NPC only. So, now with a fighter, they're capped at 9th level or 8th level, depending on their strength, basically, which you look at the chart here. It'll explain that more for you. They are never magic users whatsoever, I just want to point that out. But they can be unlimited in Thief, and they go to 9th level in Assassin. So that's pretty much clear as it is. You do get a bonus of +1 to Constitution, -1 to Charisma. On page 15, it gives you the min-maximums for sex. Whether you have a high strength or a low intelligence, but you have min-maxes to worry about when playing this class. Now, with that said, you can abide by this, or you can say the hell with it and throw it out the window. It's really up to you. They say that men are stronger than women, and women are more intelligent than men. So play it however you want to play it in your game. Whatever makes you have fun in your game, play it. I really don't care. Most of the time, we didn't really pay attention to this, except for the minimums. That's where we kind of, drew the line. If you didn't have a minimum 12 Constitution, you weren't playing a dwarf, no matter what. If you didn't have a minimum of 8 strength, you weren't playing one, whatever. So the dwarf also, there's a whole description here listed on page 15 of the dwarf, giving you the abilities that they would have. It also refers you to the monster manual for a detailed description on what the dwarf looks like and how he acts in society. So they do basically get a bonus saving throw for every 3.5 points of Constitution. They get 1 + 1 to their saving throw, so they give you the example there. They also speak the following languages of Dwarven, Gnome, Goblin, Kobold, Orcish, in addition to Common. They do speak their alignment, of course, and regardless of their intelligence, they only can speak 2 more languages on top of what's listed there. Dwarves can also see up to 60 feet infravision and varying degrees of heat when they're in darkness. So don't forget that when you're in that cave and have that torch lit, that unfortunately screws up the infravision for a dwarf, and they can only see pretty much like a human. So if you got a party and you have a human in it, and that human has to see, because it's a really dark cave, your dwarf is kind of screwed unless he runs to the edge of the light and scouts ahead. Then he will be able to see further in the dark, because don't forget that torch is heat and it throws off his infravision. That's how I played it in my games. That's how many DMs have played it in their games. Maybe you do different in your game and don't care. Hey, that's your game. You play how you want. I always say that. They have the ability to detect slopes and passages and sliding, shifting walls and rooms inside of caves and tunnels. So they have a chart here listed for that. They also get bonuses in combat when they're fighting up against kobold, orcs, gnomes, goblins, orcs, hobgoblins. They gave a +1 to hit because they absolutely cannot stand and they have this outrageous hatred for them. So they get a +1. Large creatures, due to their size, like ogres, trolls, and giants, suffer a -1 to attacking them because the dwarves are so small and the giants are so big. So that's the class there. However you want to roll it up. I mean, that's the race here. That's however you want to roll it up is fine with me. Whatever you're DMing, I should say. But the thing here is we flip over to the monster manual, and it gives us a little bit more of a look inside of what the dwarf is, how they act, what they look like, what they carry on them, and it just gives you a little more detail about it. It talks more about mountain dwarfs. These creatures are similar to their cousin, the hill dwarf, which you're pretty much playing all the time. Detailable. The only difference is they give you different sizes and hit dice, and min maxes as well, and how long they live for. So that's you either play the hill or the mountain. It's up to you, or you just play a dwarf. Doesn't matter. It's up to you. But the gem of this entire thing right here is this supplement right here. Dwarves by Role-aids. Mayfair Games made a whole bunch of things back in the early 80s, mid 80s for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So it was kind of like that gray area. They changed a bunch of the statistics around and the wording so they can get around copyright and lawsuits and things like that. So instead of hit points, it was hits to kill. Things like, little details like that. Well, I think at first TSR didn't really mind it. It became more of a nuisance along the way, and they never came to an agreement, and Mayfair got sued and lost all the Role-aid stuff. So, but this one basically is an in-depth look at dwarves, and I highly, highly recommend that you grab this if you see this in half-price books, Books A Million, your local recycle books, eBay, or Amazon. It's really not that expensive to find these things. I found them, a whole bunch of these things, for little to nothing when you go on eBay. So this book goes into great detail about the Dwarven society. It gives you some history of the dwarf, how they came to be. Now, while this isn't Greyhawk history or Forgotten Realms, depending on what world you're playing in 1E, or Ravenloft, or whatever you want to play in, your world, your rules, this is something to look over and incorporate because it's really detailed, as you can see, all the way up to today. And you can look through all that and get a good idea how to write up your history of your world. And then they give you the dwarven homes in the mountains, and courtships and marriages, and equality of the sexes, how dwarven families work. Pretty much a really large ecology article to the 9th degree, talking about their illnesses, law and justice and government, dwarven creeds, and how thieves, they're smiths, gems and jewel makers, how they make traps, how they relate to other races such as elves. They explain a little bit about how they see elves and how they relate to halflings. And then they have some fighting tactics of armies. I know a lot of people are very interested in how the armies work because it's kind of a fun thing to do every once in a while. Not all the time, but a good portion to, run an army, a dwarven army, or attacking. Why not be in charge of that? It's pretty awesome. We talk about their society as far as painting, sculpture, poetry. And then we talk about magic, magical items, and artifacts that dwarves have. And then it goes into the religion, which is a pretty detailed account of dwarven gods and how they see these gods. And it gives you a really good example of other gods that they can worship in your campaign, or how you can build other gods and incorporate them in your campaign. Because dwarves are a very religious society. They base a lot of things on ancient gods. Boom, here is your ancient gods. Wow. And then we go to generating dwarven characters. Now, they have a little bit of a different way to do it, and it's percentile rolling. And a lot of people don't care for that because it's too random, but you can use that. You don't have to, but a good portion of games during this time were very randomly generated characters, and I could think of a couple was Palladium games, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Robotech. Marvel Face Rip is a good example. That was a kind of a random roll system thing going on too. I'm not sure about the rest. I can't think of all the ones offhand, but I'm sure there's ones I'm slipping. And it gives you a really detailed background. You could probably use this for, I would say, a good portion of the background of the character. It's just kind of fun just to roll and see what you get, and maybe if you get something cool, go roll with it. But it gives you a good way to flesh out your character. We also get an example of some cities here, and some old cities of the towns, and maps, an underground city, more city adventures. There's an actual adventure in here which you can run through with your group, and it gives you a pretty detailed thing what you can do, and more maps, and then the Dwarven rights and how things are done in the Dwarven society, things like that. You have a map of like a Dwarven land, which is kind of cool. Gives you an idea how that looks and how they do their maps. Dragon, see that up there? Encounters. They give you some random encounters that you can use for your game with dragons, of course, and deadly unicorns. No, I'm kidding. Just regular unicorns. So you get all that. You talk about a couple castles and some more creatures and adventures in here. The Emerald Valley. Does that look like a slee stack kind of thing? No, never mind. No. They talk about a Dwarven Citadel, and you can look through that as well. I'm kind of scrolling through this fast because I'm not going to go over it in that detail because you can grab it yourself. You could find the PDF. I think Paizo had sold it at one point. I'm not sure if it's on drive-thru. It may not be. But Paizo did sell these things at one point, and you can get them off eBay and Amazon, like I said. There's ways to get the PDF out there. I'm not going to tell you where because that would be illegal, but, and bad. But, yeah. So, and you give you some example characters, and you can see how the difference is. Strength, insight. What is that? Stamina. Ooh, I don't know what that is. Appeal. Oh, I don't know what that is. So as you could see, basically damage dice, armor class, hits the kill, which is your hit points. So you should have a good idea exactly of what's going on when rolling up these characters. Just an example. And then we get some monsters here that you can roll with in your game. And some more items. And that is the Role-aid book. Hopefully you've gone and ran out and grabbed this right now as we're speaking. No, I'm kidding. Finish this video and then run out and grab it. Hopefully. I'll find it and throw a link in the description for you on Amazon or eBay, so you can easily just click on the link and grab it if you'd like. So that's basically Dwarves. I would highly suggest picking up this Mayfair book. It will definitely help give you a better look at Dwarves, I would say, compared to what we have right now for just talking about 1E wise. I mean, you can always look at 2E, 3E, 4, and 5 for better examples, but like me, I like to stick to the stuff of the time, and this is of the time, so when I play 1E, I stick to 1E materials. But that is just how I do it. Tell me what you do it. Have you done anything special for Dwarves? Would you give them any special abilities and classes, and what do you incorporate in your game? Comment below. Like and subscribe if you have not. Click the bell icon, and don't forget to send your questions in. Ask the Evil DM at theevildm.com. Good night, everybody. Oh, keep it original, keep it old school, and good night, everybody.